It's me, Josh Hunter, and I cannot, well, I can disclose my location, but at this point I'd rather not, so let's just assume. I've got something that I'd like to talk about, and it's a theory I'm, trying to figure out anyway. As you know, I have a lot of time, and therefore I have a lot of time to think. I like to understand as much as I need to know. I've mentioned before, I've studied a lot of, and I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm just literally saying, like, this is what I've been spending my time on, I've studied spiritual things, religious things, philosophy, whatever. I mean, that's what I did, and what did it do for me? Well, we'll find out. Anyway, so I got to thinking the other day, like, how do you know, and this is, how do you know, there are questions that need to be answered, okay? If you're going to believe in something, you really need to take the time. And critical thinking, reading comprehension, listening comprehension, we all remember social studies. Anyway. The spark for this most recent theory, let's say, is I used to, during a period of my homelessness, I really enjoyed being called Satan. For some reason, I don't know, it made me feel comfortable for people to call me Satan. And I have what I call an emergency code word. Not a safe word, but an emergency code. You know how, like, I don't know if they still do this, they used to have, like, emergency alerts, like when it was, like, the highest possible emergency, and they have, like, at, like, the White House, that's what they would do, like, orange and red and green and blue or whatever. But my own personal code that I said was just to let anyone know that we are in a state of very high emergency. It was a name that I gave myself, because people would always ask me these different names, like, what's your name, what's your name? I didn't like saying my name all the time, so I came up with this name. I call it Satan Kurama. And this is like it's just something that I say, like, it's like the highest level emergency. Anyway, so having this name for a while, I mean, not that there's only like one person I think who calls me Satan every time he sees me, and I like it. It's not that I'm like a devil worshiper. I don't know. It seems like balanced, I guess. I don't feel like Anyway, so I got to thinking about the Bible and general ideas about heaven and all that, and I got to thinking, like, well, if God created everything, then, like, Satan was in heaven, like, why did Satan get kicked out? I mean, if Satan, who was an angel, like a pure creation of God, can get kicked out of heaven, then what does that say about us? Like, we could be doing all this work. Are we better than angels? And so we could do all this work to try to get into heaven, and then God, changes his or her mind and then kicks us out, and it's like, this is not an analogy or a metaphor for something else. I'm not saying, well, why couldn't my friends and family not kick me out? Because housing is heaven. Nah, sorry. Anyway, I wanted to. So anyway, this got to me to thinking, because the devil is always like Satan and the devil are always associated with having souls, like. And that was a point of contention, I guess. I don't know. Because if you like are an atheist or something and you just believe in these physical realm and reality, it's hard to understand why, I guess the intent of God and all that. And my belief is, I couldn't say that, there's definitely a God. But what I could say is that God is very busy, and if we kind of wonder, well, why why hasn't God shown himself or herself? I think God's more like, I've given you enough, and if you can't use what I've already given you, then you're not worthy of any more gifts from me. That's my understanding anyway, that God has already given us plenty and you just keep asking for more. It's like, please give me more, God. I want more, God, please. It's like, well, did you even use what I already gave you? Why are you like it's like you got a handful of money and, you know, food and clothes, and you're saying, hey God, could you give me some more food, money, and clothes? And I imagine his or her silence is anyway. So this got so in thinking about these things, you know, religion, Satan, you know, getting kicked out of heaven, and like you could do all this work, and then how do you know that you won't get kicked out of heaven? That's my concern. How do you know that you won't get kicked out of heaven? How do you know that you won't, while you're in heaven, you won't eventually get the same ideas that Satan did? Because they wrote the Bible, but they didn't write about all the other people who were in heaven. How do we know that all these people who got to heaven didn't do the same thing that Satan? Are there any updates? How do we know? You know, I mean, there's no, there's no like push notifications for what happened in heaven after the Bible was written. So how are we supposed to know what happened? Because there's like a limit. There's a limit to what we know. So literally like 2,000 years ago or whatever, that's our last email update as far as what's going on in heaven. And so tons of things could have happened in heaven. He could have changed his mind again, because you have the Old Testament, you have the New Testament. So where's our updates? And I mean, you know, maybe, you know, mysterious ways or whatever. I'm not being cynical. I'm not attempting to be cynical or bitter or anything. I just believe that if you're talking about your soul, which is an extremely important part of yourself, you better be damn sure you know what you're talking about. And because you could end up being in heaven, and maybe heaven ain't what I think that you could end up in heaven, and like you could have done all. Imagine this, okay? I want to give you an I want to give you an example of what it feels. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, so okay, so my main purpose is, or not my main purpose, I was trying to figure out if you could figure out where the soul, I know old time philosophers did this, a lot of people have probably discussed the very thing that I'm talking about, but I'm just going to say it here so that I have it for myself. If you want to know like the correct course, you have to know your own heart, and you have to know your soul. In some modalities, that is the same thing. The heart and the soul are one. But you can see your heart. You know that you have a heart. You can hear your heart. But the idea of a soul, what is that? Where is the soul, and why do we have such a hard time defining it? Okay, I'm going to try and say this. I only got like less than 7 minutes or whatever. I'm going to try and get through it. Okay, the Earth moves at like 66,000 miles an hour. Therefore, every human being on the Earth is moving at 66,000 miles an hour. Now, when you see something that's moving very quickly, it leaves a trail, does it not? If you see a shooting star in the sky, it leaves a trail. So anything that's moving very quickly is going to leave some type of evidence of itself. So if you're living on the Earth, then you too might leave a type of trail. And you could surmise anyway that energy, as it rotates, as the Earth rotates and orbits around the sun, you create a type of line or a circle, and everything that you do, the sum total of your life and energy, you know, your beliefs, your feelings, your thoughts, the sum total of that is your soul while it's on the Earth. And so when you die, you still have that momentum, and this is what I'm referring to. Your soul is the momentum of your life spent on any particular planet or plane. So while you're on the Earth, you have a soul because you have the momentum of 66,000 miles an hour all the time. And in fact, faster than that, because you're not only, you know, rotating you're rotating. The Earth is rotating at 66,000 miles an hour, but it's also orbiting at a speed which, for some reason, I chose not to remember at this point. So, I believe when you die, I think it's supposed to mean that heaven, if you have lived in a correct way, that your soul is the momentum of the sum total of your energy. So they sometimes say, oh, 7 pounds when you die, leaves the body. But when you die, I think that energy still has a momentum, because you're still moving at 66,000 miles. Even if you're just sitting still, not doing anything, you're still moving at least 66,000 miles an hour. So when that momentum has to keep on going. So what you would call reincarnation is when that energy is able to locate into some two people or whatever and finds a place where it can be reborn. The momentum of your previous efforts, your previous life and all that. I think that's what a soul is, and it can be explained in physical terms. I don't know if I'm explaining it the best, I'm sure. So heaven would be, well, it's not necessarily that you go to some other place or some, but no, I'm not going to talk about heaven. That's not, it's not my place. So, if you know that, so that being said, I would like to also keep saying that leaving the Earth is not probably the best idea, but I can't, Just think about it. While you're on the Earth, without any effort, you are moving at speeds of at least 66,000 miles an hour, which may have a certain, benefit to you. But if you leave the Earth, again, I think, because when I think about the Bible, I know people have talked about this, but I think when the Bible, when it says something like, oh, if you should, gain the whole world and lose your soul, literally, if you were to take a spaceship or something and leave the Earth, you would no longer, maybe it depends on the spaceship, but you wouldn't be moving at 66,000 miles an hour anymore. You'd be moving whatever speed that ship is, and maybe the ship is constant or whatever, but your soul, no matter what, has a guaranteed 66,000 mile an hour rate of, momentum. So if you want to go into outer space, you want to go to the moon, you want to go to all these other different places, the momentum of your life is going to be different. You may not be the same type of human being. There may be effects because you don't think about that, because you think, oh, you're just on the Earth. But we know that the Earth is rotating, but we don't necessarily consciously recognize that it's moving extremely quickly. I just happen to notice this because I'm using solar panels all the time, and I constantly have to change the angle to the sun, and so it reminds me. So, I think the soul is a physical thing, but also that, you should probably stay on the Earth and not try to go somewhere else. I think someone may be trying to trick people into leaving the Earth so that they can have more. No, that's paranoia, and I don't want to. Why would someone? Oh, the devil. No, I don't want to scare you. Okay. Anyway, well, I think that's. Well, if I. For some reason, I suddenly feel like somebody likes me. I don't know why that is. Very rarely, I do get the sense but I don't know what it feels like to be a liked person. I know what it feels like for people when they like somebody else, and I just kind of just kind of absorb, somebody. Anyway, all right. Thank you very much, and have a good night, and Thank you very much.